It's been 2 weeks. Slightly more actually, I think. But it's better than I did with the update that was before the one that was before this. Doesn't matter what I'm saying. Anyway, we're back at it. I have some exciting new things to share. Some like actual new ones as in like cast-ons, and some new in the sense of abandoned project. If you haven't watched that video, I would highly recommend you watch that first, because then you might know like this is exciting for me. But let's first note the fact that there is no beverage next to me. I was too lazy to make myself a drink. I just couldn't be bothered. I have so much delicious tea to choose from. I don't know if I've ever mentioned, but I did sign up to the monthly tea subscription service that Bird & Blend do. So I think it's like on the 21st of every month they ship my 3 teas that I don't know what they are unless I've spoilt it by looking at someone else's. And then typically it already arrives like on the 22nd, sometimes the 23rd, you know, depending on when the 21st hits. So I always get like new exciting teas every month, and I've had one of them, almost finished one of them because I like it so much, but today I was not feeling the tea. The weather has been weird. I was, as you can tell, like I'm in a, this is a spoiler by the way, I'm in a relatively thick cardigan that I made, but it's been quite warm today. I'm wearing just like a normal white t-shirt underneath this, and that's all I wore on top when I walked outside earlier today. That was it. It was that hot. It was like 24, 25 degrees. But my apartment's still quite cold just because, you know, it's been a bit chillier, so it's like absorbed all the cold instead of the warmth and heat, so it hasn't been as cold as I would like it to be. I've kind of given up on summer. I'm done with it. As much as I would like, I love the warmer weather and being outdoors, like the sun is setting sooner, it doesn't rise as early anymore, and that's what I really enjoy with summer. Getting longer daylight hours. But that's gone, so summer can just bugger off now in my opinion. Bring on autumn, bring on the warm coziness and the teas and the cozy knits. That's what I'm here for. But the weather is not in line with what I want. It has a mind of its own. My brain today. I've done a decent amount of thesis work today, but then I also spent like the whole afternoon trying to sort some stuff, and it's just... good day, not as productive as I could have been. But on to the knitting, because I think there's nothing I want to share right now. We'll get onto the life stuff at the end. I'll share my knitting stuff. But first things first, look at the thing that I'm wearing that's hidden by my hip. I'm sorry, I just dropped something on the floor. What was it? Oh, it's just an empty bottle. I'll pick that up later. But yes, I have, you know what, I'll actually stand up and hopefully it won't be blurry. I'll try and back away from the camera. But this is my finished Luca cardigan. If you follow me on Instagram, like I say every time, you really should. It's at Nina Maria Design, and then I always insert it here for your pleasure to not click on, because you can't. It's also in the description box. Like, you do just hear from me more often, get to see. There was a little fly. I think it's gone. I already shared my finished pictures of it, of me wearing it and things like that, because the pattern released on the Saturday that's just been, which I think was the 9th? Maybe. It released a couple of days ago. It will have been almost a week by the... No, I'm hoping this video actually goes up sooner than that. It released recently. Nina. I wore it all of yesterday because I was actually going to film yesterday, so this video would be up on Sunday. And then it's just recharging the battery, getting prepared, all of a sudden the day was slipping away and I didn't want to film in the dark. Like, it's already quite late today, but I'm like, whatever, the video will be a bit late, you will just have to deal with it. But I wore it all day yesterday and only just threw it on now because it got a bit colder. But I really love it. It did not take too long to knit actually. 3 weeks? And I wasn't working on it the whole time. I really was very diligent with this one though. When I was like, oh, I feel like doing some knitting, I think very rarely did I pick up something else. I think I mainly worked on this. And then I just had to wait quite a while because I ordered these buttons once I'd finished the knitting. Not before, because I didn't think. And I ordered them off Etsy. I'll have the shop linked below. I think they're quite cute, and the kind of colour I was looking for. I was thinking about going dark, and I was like, no, I want something a bit more brighter to make it a bit brighter itself. But it's a very beginner friendly cardigan, I would say. Maybe if you've never really knitted a garment before, because it's worked seamlessly, but it still has to be worked flat unless you want to do steeking. So it's all the instructions and everything are really clear, and it's all easy to follow. It might just be that the stitch pattern itself might be, it's an extra thing to have to think about, which can be a bit tricky when you get back to like the sleeves and making sure everything lines up. That's the only thing that I think would maybe deter a beginner. Doesn't mean you couldn't do it, just means it maybe wouldn't be as relaxing as I found it, because I barely had to pay any attention at all. Because you can either count, every 4th row has to be knit 1, purl 1, or you can see to make sure the gaps are always roughly the same, and you get a feel for it. But yeah, I love it. I've been wearing it. This is my 2nd day now wearing it, and I still love it. Though, classic me, my sleeves are a bit baggy now, the ribbing, which was relatively firm when I blocked it, because I wear it and I immediately do this, so I stretch it out. But I know, like with other jumpers that I haven't made, I've bought, I just need to block it, wash it again, and then it will just shrink back into position. It's a classic me. To be honest, I feel like maybe I should make them tighter than tight, but then it's still going to stretch out to the size of my elbow. I don't know. But that is my first finished object. I have got another one on the go, because when I first started test knitting this one, oh, I didn't say. So this I knitted for Sophie who's the Knit Pearl Girl. I think I always said the Knit and Pearl Girl. She's the Knit Pearl Girl on Instagram. I'll have a link below. You can buy the pattern now as well. But when I started that test knit, I had this wool lying around from a de-stash that Iris did, who's one half from Hook and Light. She did a de-stash and had this Drops Paris cotton yarn, which is Aran weight. So I had to drop a needle size to get the correct gauge. Tension, whatever you want to call it. But I had this lying around, and I was like, okay, I did a little swatch, and I was like, okay, I have to drop a needle size, that's fine. And then I kind of also bought some other cheaper, more affordable cotton yarn. But then kind of started on both, and then said, well, actually, you know what, I think I would rather make this one right now, because the other yarn I have is quite thin for DK. So the jump is just a lot more open and airy, and I was like, we're getting into the colder months. I think it would be wiser for me to make a cardigan with thicker yarn. So that is what I've done. I'll hopefully finish that other one at some point, but now there's no pressure with a deadline looming. I'll get to it eventually. I was going to say something else, but yeah, so I bought the yarn from Iris. She was selling like 15, 12. She had a certain number of these 50-gram balls available. And I messaged her, was like, I'm interested in those, and also some mini skeins she was selling. And someone else had also messaged her roughly at the same time who also wanted them. And she was like, but she's actually now found more, and she had like 30. She was like, do you guys want 15 each? And I was like, happy with it. And I used just over 14. So it was like, it was destiny, it was fate, all of it. It was just perfectly timed and just unbelievable, because for those 15 balls of that cotton yarn, I paid £9. So this cardigan material costs with the buttons cost me less than £10. Now I know there's a lot of labour costs involved, but to be honest that's like a hobby of mine, so I could have either been doing that or just sitting watching TV. I don't think it counts towards the cost in my opinion. It just, you know, took a little longer than just going to the shop and buying it. But I think that's pretty amazing. But you can just, you know, make something that can be that affordable. So I think it can show that it can fit, you know, knitting can work for a lot of different budgets. I'm not saying it will work for everyone because I know some people survive on very little money. But it is just an option if, you know, you've had a change in circumstances that maybe if knitting is a hobby, you can't, you know, stick with it the way you were before, but maybe there's ways that you can sort of change it. So I think that's quite amazing. Let me now show you the other thing I finished, because yes, in 2 weeks' time I finished 2 things. To be honest, I think it's sort of obvious what I finished. Beep, 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 beep. Oh no, I don't want to drop everything. Well, we're dropping some stuff. Oh no! So, the other thing I finished, and I've not woven in the ends or blocked it, is the Cozy Classic Raglan I was working on. Ta-da! So the ribbing and everything's still quite firm because I haven't blocked it yet. But it is done! Ugh, really struggling to hold this up. So like I said, I made this for a friend of mine. So I spent a lot of time, because she doesn't know she's getting it, I had to spend a lot of time kind of looking up standard sizing, roughly how long is someone's torso, how long are someone's arms, and then just kind of guess from there and add like an inch or two, because I'm like, it's better if the sleeves and the body are a bit longer than short. So I'm hoping it will be okay, but when I finished it, woven in the ends, blocked it, all of that, and send it off to her, I will just say, like, I've got some extra yarn if she does feel like the sleeves aren't long enough, the body isn't long enough, or they're too long, I can always, you know, change it and rip it back and fix it for her, which isn't that easy once you've woven in the ends, but I'm really hopeful the length and everything will be okay. But I love, I've said this every time I've held this up, like in a video, but I love the yarn together. I'll have a link below, I've talked about it in depth over the past few videos, but I like the fact that the Suri alpaca I used for the lace weight yarn you hold with it, with the 4-ply, is lighter in colour, and so much lighter, and I thought it would, you know, make the whole garment a little bit lighter, and then when I started working with it I was like, well no, it's dominant. And I guess it is just because it's so like fuzzy and furry, it really does just create like this intense halo, so it looks kind of like tweedy and just makes the whole thing, just transforms the standard like dark navy kind of blue yarn I had, which, you know, was a solid colour. And so the Suri alpaca really did just completely change that, because once again the 4-ply was from Cascade, which was I think half the price of a lot of indie dyed stuff, so it's quite affordable. But the Suri alpaca I used was from Georgie, the Fibre Fox, of course. And so then just made the jumper. I think at the end, when I calculated the cost for this, I think it was like £60, and I had very little of my 4-ply left. I used 2 skeins, pretty much almost exactly 2 skeins. I think I have maybe 5-7 grams left, so enough to potentially do like an extra inch or so I think in the body. But with the Suri alpaca I barely used anything of the 3rd skein of it, and I knew that would happen. So I also made her a matching hair scrunchie with the same, so here you can actually see what the Suri alpaca looks like. So they do, you know, match but are different because this one has the 4-ply on it. But I've been messing around with making scrunchies because Georgie also started selling 10, 20 gram minis, I want to say, of her mohair base, which I think is called Fluff. And I bought some of those during the most recent Yorkshire Yarn Fest. I guess I could share it at the end of this video. I'll share it at some point. You'll see the yarn I bought at some point. And because Georgie had made a hair scrunchie, and so I was really interested in trying it myself. Bought some of those, but then thought it'd be nice to send my friend one of these along with the jumper. And I found a few patterns online, and none of them, so this was one of the ones I tested using one of the patterns online, but I've also made my niece one to go along with the love note that I made for her. I've sent that off now. I did get a little video, which I guess I'll include now, so you can see what that other scrunchie looks like. I'm just getting ready to, the colour's showing off a bit weird, to send off the love note for my niece. And I thought I'd also share it, because I'm not going to be able to actually show it in my video, and made her a matching hair scrunchie. Once again, the colour does not exactly right. I'll have a picture of it on my Instagram anyway. But I've looked at a couple of different patterns, and I don't know, I just didn't really like them, and it was too much effort to knit, so I kind of made my own design. But I'm going to keep playing around and think about maybe publishing it, because I feel like this is the best one I've made yet. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that. So that one I did with my own kind of pattern design, because I wanted to work it in the round, and then I didn't want to like seam it together, and so it's just, I think I even said in that short little clip, like I might make a pattern and put it online. We'll see. I'm going to keep messing around. I've got plenty more that I want to make, because I haven't made myself one yet. Got to do that. My brain's so tired. Yeah, so I'm messing around with hair scrunchies, and it's quite nice because it's a project where you really can sit down, put on a movie, and by the end of it you've got a finished hair scrunchie, which is cool. It's also useful that I had a lot of spare unused hair ties. I used to be obsessed with the ones that H&M did, where they kind of just look like a bit of rolled up like t-shirt material almost, and so they're kind of perfect for that. So that's what I've been using. Opened up one of those packs that I had lying around. I think I've got more, but they might be back home in Austria. Who knows? But yes, we have another finished object. I just need to actually block it. I've just been a bit, I was gonna say lazy. It's not even lazy, but like this took ages to dry because it's Aran weight yarn. Even on my blocking mats, and the fact that it hadn't been as warm, it just took so long until it finally dried. I was worried. Well, I kind of did miss the deadline with releasing my pictures and like sending them to Sophie before the pattern came out, because I just had to wait for it to dry before putting the buttons on and then taking the pictures. So because this took so long, it then meant I couldn't get around to blocking this, and now I have such a busy week ahead of me, the next 2 weeks really, that I'm not sure. I might just do it really early one morning before I start work. But we'll see. I will get it done soon. There's no kind of deadline with this. She doesn't know she's getting it. It's going to be an absolutely amazing surprise, and I'm just excited. But I guess I'll kind of, like, I'm busy right now, not just with my PhD work, but also kind of getting a lot of other things sorted and organised, because uni starts again at the start of October. And because I'm not close to finishing writing up, like I'm at the writing up stage, it's going quite well, but my funding for my PhD is going to run out soon. I got an extension because of the whole COVID situation and the impact that had on me and my research, but it's still, at the end of that, I should hopefully be done. Kind of depends what's coming up in the next few months. But I've been looking at kind of getting some experience and doing some work, and I really love teaching, and that's the direction I kind of want to head into. So I've been applying and looking at doing some part-time work, running tutorials and workshops and things. So I've got one that I'm hoping to hear about by the end of this week, which I'm really hoping I'll get. And if that happens, that will also push my deadline, because doing that part-time while trying to write up my thesis, like, they're both so mentally draining, I can't still finish to my original deadline. And I've accepted that. That is fine. That is life. I'm pushing my deadline back for something really good for my future, career-wise, but also just I've missed teaching so much. I think that's the thing, that other than not being able to see my friends and family, not being able to teach has been the most annoying thing about the pandemic. For me personally, I've been really lucky that no one I know has been really badly affected by the pandemic, but with the restrictions and everything in place, that was kind of the thing that made me really upset, because I really do love teaching. So that's why I really hope I do get this job. But see you the next... Oh, let's kind of address something before I show you the next thing I want to show you, which is completely raveled up in something else. Why do you do this to me? Just 1 second. Bear with. Almost there. There we go. I'm not gonna show you the Nobu shawl. I'm not gonna show you the Harry Potter socks. I've made some progress on them, but when I say I've made some progress on them, it's maybe 5 rows on both of them, each, not like in total. So there is progress, but I just don't really want to talk about it, because progress is slow. And even though I've been working on the socks a lot more recently, because instead of having them by my bedside table, which I used to kind of go to bed, wind down, maybe read a bit, and then maybe, you know, do a bit of my sock knitting, I've been so tired. I've been going to bed earlier than normal, not really reading, not really doing any knitting, because I'm just exhausted, so I just immediately fall asleep. So I was like, okay, cool, well, if you're not going to knit in bed, you need to move the project into the living room. So it's in the living room, and I keep it sort of like tucked into the sofa a bit where I normally sit, so that when I sit down to watch TV or just have a bit of a break, I then go, ooh, my socks, and my hands just immediately go, huh, it's knitting needles, I must pick it up and knit. Sometimes I don't even realise I'm knitting. So that's why I've been able to make a bit of progress with them. There's still not a lot. I'm hoping now that the weather's gonna hopefully get a bit colder, but it looks like it's gonna be quite warm this week, that I'll be able to knit on them a bit more. Because I've discovered I don't like sock knitting in summer. I'm like, why? I get sweaty feet, I don't want to think about socks. And the Nobu shawl, I just have not had the brain power to look. When I've been sitting all day, staring at my computer, and it's been stressful because of my work, I don't then want to move my laptop into the living room, sit down and open a pattern, because my brain just goes, ugh, this computer causes me stress. Brains are great. So I don't have that to share, but don't fear, it will be done at some point this year. Is that a rhyme? I've always, I think from when I first learned English, I've always been really bad with understanding what a rhyme is and what isn't. Because to me things sound like they rhyme, but then I've been told it's maybe a half rhyme, but you're pushing it. And I think it's just because of how I talk that I can make things sound like they rhyme in my head, because they sound like melodical. Is that a word? Melodic? They sound melodic. So they sound like a song, so then I make songs rhyme. So that rhyme. But fear and year, right? So many self-doubts about rhymes. But something that I had, you know, started working on was all like, woohoo, go, 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 look at how much progress I've made, and then just went, what project? Finally picked it up again, and it's the Jessica Jones cowl. Look how much more I have. I did not put a progress marker in, but I think I had like this much. I've done heaps. I think measurement-wise, I'm halfway through, and when I weighed what I've got left of my ball of yarn, isn't this colour just stunning? Oh, makes me want to buy a whole sweater's quantity. Nina, no! Use the yarn you have. Thank you, wise old voice. That made me completely lose my train. When I weighed the ball, I remembered. When I weighed the ball of yarn that I have left, you know, just pop it on the scale just to see how much has it changed from 100 grams. I think I'm at like 57 grams. So I'm gonna knit until it's the length it's meant to be, which I think is 37 centimeters. And then I'm gonna see how much yarn there is left over and then decide, do I want to cast off, keep going until the litch is, you know, just enough to cast off. Just depends whether I want a bit of a scrap yarn left or not, which will be important for something I'll show later. But yes, so decent progress made with this. 6mm needles, which is really nice on my hands when I've been working with much smaller ones. The little stitch marker here I've shown before is from Jen's Crafty Charms. I will have the correct Instagram handle down below. I just realised I need to go back and change it from my old videos because poor Jen's account was hacked twice. So she had it once, managed to get it back, but all her pictures were lost. So she had to kind of like start over again, which made me panic and go like, I'm going to screenshot the pictures I have on Instagram so that I can kind of build them back up again. Because I have all the pictures saved on my phone or my computer, but not remembering which ones, and it just made me panic. But then it was hacked again, and the second time they changed the email address. So now when she's contacted Instagram to try and get support for that, they've been all like, oh, you need to contact us from the email address associated with the account. And she's like, well, that was changed by the people who hacked my account. So she started a new Instagram. It's still Jen's Crafty Charms, but she used to have underscores between, and she had to remove those because obviously that's now being used by someone else. Makes me so mad. But I'll have that below. Her Etsy store is still the same. I'll have that link below as well, but please do support her. She's had a rough time. Makes me really sad because she's absolutely lovely and amazing and makes really cute stitch markers. So this one's came as a duo. So there's this little sheep which looks like it's just like small and puffy and just sitting, and the other one has a bit of her booty showing. But yes, good progress. I will continue to work on it. Sometimes I think there was a point once I didn't need bigger needles anymore because my hands had recovered. I think I then sort of struggled to get into the swing of things because there is a lot of yarn movement moving up front and back. With the linen stitch, but I don't know, I just have it sometimes with any sort of stitch, even just with straight, just knitting every single stitch, that I feel like my hands are bored and tired, and then I sort of have to just break through that for a couple of minutes, and then it just becomes therapeutic again and calming and awesome. And so I had that, and that's when I knitted the majority of this chunk. So I think it is just one of those projects. I'll pick it up when the right time comes along, which was recently, but it might not come again for another wee while. So that's that. And then I guess I won't talk about my new cast-ons just yet. Well, first, remember how I talked about watching that abandoned projects video? Hope you've watched it now. Hope you paused this video and gone and watched it. Because I don't know what happened. I think I finished this, I finished the Cozy Classic Raglan, and my brain went, we should cast on something new. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's allowed, you know, I've cast off 2 things, that's awesome. But then my brain was all like, but what shall we cast on? So I think that's when I took to Instagram and just asked people, like, took pictures of 2 sets of yarn. I was like, shall I make a cardigan with this, or shall I do my first ever colourwork sweater with this? And I think it was like 75% if not more voted for the colourwork sweater. So then I also thought, actually that'd be quite nice to kind of film my experience with that. So that, you know, if any of you are beginners that are watching, you can kind of because I'm not a beginner when it comes to knitting, but I've done a little bit of colour work. I've like dipped my toes into it. You know, when water's really cold and you go, ooh, and then you kind of run away. And I haven't fully immersed myself into the cold water of colour work yet. So then I didn't want to start that. Let me not. Spoilers. Spoilers. If you know what this means, you already know what project I'm talking about. But so I didn't want to start that because I was like, oh, I need to make sure the space is set up correctly so I can film me winding up the yarn, talking about the yarn, getting started with the cast on, and just having all of it prepared and ready for filming. So I was like, oh, we can't do that. And I was like, but I really want to work on a sweater, Nina. What can I do? And then I think one of the abandoned projects I have, which occasionally just moves around my house, though I never work on it. I feel like if I move it enough times, it will just poof, be done. No. I think it's sort of like either fell down or I had to move it or clean it up, and then I just found myself sitting down and knitting it. So it is, I'll show you the bag actually, one of the Wool and the Gang kits I have. Ooh, oh, spoilers. So it's the replay jumper, which is knit with the mohair, Take Care mohair, is what it's called. And last time I showed this, which was literally the Abandoned Projects video, which was like the second video I ever filmed, I was working on the front and the back and they're knitted the same way. So I was like, well, it's worked flat. Everything I think that Wool and the Gang do is worked flat. Except maybe beanies? I don't know. All the garments I've ever made from them have always been worked flat, which is a bit frustrating now that I'm like, why work flat? You don't need to. But for the sleeves, when I work flat, I cast on both the sleeves to make sure they're the same length, because it will at some point say knit until your sleeve is 47 centimeters long, working in pattern. And I don't want to go back and then count the number of rows I did. And I could estimate, hold it up to each other, but then I thought, no, if you knit them at the same time, why can't you also do that with the front and the back? So that's what I did. Which then made the whole process a lot more painful and longer, because you see progress much slower because you're making a little bit of progress on two bits at the same time. But anyway, I have finished the front and the back. Look at all that mohair. So that's where the sleeves will slide into place. So it's worked in mock fisherman's rib. So I've got, just so you can see, so I'm not lying, I've got two of them. Look at that red, it's so red. I see red, I see red, I see red. So they're both done, but let's take a little break from that. We're not going to talk about the progress I've made, we're going to talk about the pattern, which I don't actually have in this bag, which is fine, I don't need to show it to you. Everything up until because it's worked bottom up, did a little bit of ribbing, though I think that's also just mock fisherman's rib. But anyway, you kind of just work in pattern for ages until you finally cast off some stitches either side for your sleeves. And then you start to do decreases every 4th round, I think it is, for the kind of raglan shaping you have for the jumper. So that's why she holds it up, as she just said, let's put this aside, you get that diagonal bit there. But in the pattern it says, it will say, for example, cast off the 4 stitches, you know, which will be for the underarm. Work remaining stitches. And I was like, okay, interesting. I'm assuming, depending on whether I'm on a right side or a wrong side row, because the mock fisherman rib is knit 1 row, and the second row, which is the wrong side, you purl 1, knit 1 below, and just repeat until the end. And I was like, oh, but you've cast off 4 stitches, so that's fine, because that's an even number, so you just treat it as if you're working normally, start with a purl. But when you start to do decreases, and you have a row where you decrease 1 stitch at the start, 1 stitch at the end, when you then come to the next row, and you should always decrease on the right side row where you're just knitting. the pattern does not allow for that as it's written. When it tells you to go back and repeat certain rows, you end up having 2 wrong side rows that you're working. So it's like, okay, they must have screwed up. I'm gonna just ignore doing these 2 or just do the other 2. And then they also just keep saying work stitches. And I was like, well, normally you would say work in pattern. That's what other patterns would say. So I checked the back and I was like, how did they define it? And they say, when it says work in stitches, it will tell you what pattern to work in. And I was like, but it doesn't. So it took me a while to figure out that because I was only doing a single decrease, at times I was purling the stitches I should have done a knit more below for. So you can't, I don't think you can really tell because the mohair is so fluffy, but there are certain rows, and quite a few rows, most of this chunk here, I figured out my mistake about here, most of these, it alternates, so it's more like a moss stitch, but not even like a moss stitch. So it just really annoys me. And because I work the front and the back at the same time, it's not like I can put the crappy side on the back and the good side at the front, because they both have the same mistakes. So it looks like it's on purpose. But I'm going to be sending a literally, oh, you can actually see. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera, but there is a line here where I changed, where I realised my mistake. So it's this bit here where I screwed up. But I'm going to be writing them an email and saying, look, I don't know if since I bought this kit in 2019, mid-2019, if things have changed. Maybe you've updated your pattern, it happens. But this is not okay. It is intermediate, I get that, but the instructions aren't consistent with what they... The little fly came back. Where'd it go? But it's not consistent with how they do things and how they describe things. So I'm like, dear Will and the gang, once again, I've written to them before about a mistake they've made in the pattern, and they're like, oh yeah, cool, thanks. And I was like, that's it? You're not even going to send me a new copy of the pattern? That's the least you could do. So currently not too happy with them. But I am now doing the sleeves because that's the only thing that's left to do. She says, not facing the camera. I'm sure you got that. I'm doing the sleeves. This is what I have so far. Because I'm working them together, of course I am. So I think I have to do 3 more sets of deep increases for the sleeves, because it's worked cuff up. And then I knit until it's like 47 centimeters long, and then I do the Raglan decreases for it, and then seam it all together and block this baby. So I can't wait for this to be done, because I'm sick and tired of working with mohair. But this was sort of surprising. I wasn't planning to work on this at all. I just sort of did. And made decent progress. So one of my abandoned projects is not so abandoned anymore. And I've got another one. Yes, that's right. Your gal Nina has gone back. She hasn't just cast it on. Apparently doing those 2 chatty videos that I did about how many projects is too many. And the whole hashtag project for your whips. Yoo-hoo. It's just motivated me. Go back, finish some stuff. Not that I'm that close to finishing it, but you know, if I keep going at the rate I've been going. Because in 2 weeks that's how much progress I made, while also doing other stuff, so I'm pretty happy. One more abandoned project to share, and then we've got 2 new cast-ons. Though one of them I don't really count, so we'll get onto it in just a little bit. Let me just gather everything. I'm making a mess. Also just, this is my life. I dropped a Lego minifigure a couple of, I think like 3-4 weeks ago now, and it was one of the collectible minifigures, and it was holding a little 2x2 plate, and I just couldn't find it. I searched the whole ground, couldn't find it. Now, as I'm filming, I look down and I found it, because I think it was the one celebrating 10 years of minifigures. Now that's found, and a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Anyway, back to the knitting. And we're back into it though. I just went to sit down to film the rest of the project. I got distracted by a bus outside and I like only half sat on the chair and then almost fell to the ground. I'm so tired. Here we go. I'm gonna try and get through the last 3 quickly. But I always have so much to say apparently that I think I'm lying to you and I'm lying to myself. But the other abandoned project, if you've watched the video, you can already tell me what this is. Because I obviously haven't worked on it, so it's not like there's going to be something else in there. And once a knitting project has a home, I don't kick it out. Not until it's, you know, finished, grown up. Can it emerge from the nest, fly into the big world. It's my Litmus Cowl. Let's just ignore everything I just said there. Last time I had this, I think. I was just starting or was halfway through with the black here. So I had the purple, the white, blue, the blue, and now I've also got this fiery orangey red. Oh, I love how much it's popping on camera. And I'm literally 4 stitches away from finishing this black. And then I think the next colour I wanted to do was this green. They're all a mess because they've been in here for so long. It's embarrassing. But 1, 2, 3, 4. After that one, I should only have 1 more. So I have 2 choices. Yeah, one of the greens. The sparkly white green or the green green. And I think I wanted to go for this green first and then the sparkly green green. At least that's what I think I'm going to go with. We'll see. I did write it down in a little notebook. I have to keep track of things. Not that you need to. Like, it's such an easy pattern, you shouldn't have to keep track of things, but apparently I like to. So I think the reason... I think me working on this again is just a clear sign the weather has changed, we're into autumn, and this is an autumn knit for me. In summer it just doesn't make sense. It's like, I'm not going to wear it. I didn't wear my Litmus Cowl at all in summer. I think the first time, what was the day? There was a day last week, maybe it was over the weekend, and I was going to leave the house. I was like, it looks a bit chilly outside. I think I'll leave my Litmus Cowl. I hadn't worn it since like March when I was in Austria was probably the last time I wore it. If I even wore it then, because it was quite warm in Austria. So it's been a while, and I bought this just before Christmas, so it's been sitting around for ages. But once I do work on it, I find progress is quite quick, because you are just knitting like 10 rows. It's a free pattern online. But the first one I did was with Hayley's yarn from Ducky Darlings, like I bought a kit. It's my first little dive into indie dyed yarn, and look at me now. And this yarn's from Mothy and the Squid. I think in that abandoned projects video I actually linked all of them and like mentioned all the names because I cannot remember now. So I'm just going to copy and paste that and put it in the description box. Not that I know she still does them, because she does like seasonal colours, and the pictures that her yarn's inspired by is just so beautiful. I can't look at her account, otherwise I literally just want to go, but it looks exactly like the picture's beautiful, so the yarn's beautiful, so now I want to buy it. Sometimes I speak so fast that I get lightheaded. Should also have some water. But yeah, so progress is slow. I feel like I say that about everything. But it's not bad. And I've been picking it up again, though it feels weird that these needles are so short, and so I feel like I'm knitting with, I'm a giant knitting a human-sized project. That's how I feel, because I have quite big hands. So with these little needles, I just feel like it just feels a bit bizarre. I said in that abandoned projects video as well, my mum bought me this project bag, I think from a market in Dubai. I do not know if you can get it anywhere. I am so sorry if you really like it, because I do. It's a lion. I'm a Leo, so mum often buys me like Leo related things, and she also calls my hair lion's mane, which I think is more accurate than ever. Which I think I've said in a past video as well. Anyway, I'm tired. But I also want to talk about my work, but I'm also just like, where? Just let me go knit. So the first thing I have to show you, which is not the first thing I cast on over these last 2 weeks, but it's just the closer one. This is what I have so far. Yes, I am making a jumper, and yes, it is worked flat. I am making a, what's the pattern called? Mrs. Weasley Christmas jumper. It's from the same, I'm looking up there, but it's no longer up there. I moved all my knitting books into the living room. I cleaned up my living room like really thoroughly over the weekend. Dusted things and cleaned properly and all these things. And I decided I wanted to rearrange some of the shelves that I have in there. Because normally everything I have in there is gaming related or DVD related. And I wanted one of the little cubby holes to be for like my weights and the resistant bands and things I have when I do like at-home workouts. But I also kind of wanted my knitting books down there because I don't want them on my coffee table because I've got too many now and it takes up too much room. But I did want them kind of a bit more on display, so I put them there. But it used to be up there, which is why I'm looking at, I've got a bookshelf there. But yes, I'm making one of those. It's not for me. Where is I going with that? But the patterns work black. The pattern has worked flat. And I only recently started this. I've had the yarn since August? And thought it was finally time, and I watched the first Harry Potter while taking up the yarn and casting it on. And it's been quite fun because it's Aran weight, 5.5 millimeter needles. My tension was a bit weird, but the closest I got to what was written in the pattern was with these ones. It was weird. I'm also making a video of me making this. Can't remember why, but I am. So you might actually not see this at all, or maybe I'll share it now and then never again. I don't know. We'll see. I'm using West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, the Croft, I think it is, so it's a Shetland wool, which feels quite rough in the skein. Not like rough, but if you compare it to like Superwash Merino or even BFL, because I know BFL is a little bit rougher than Superwash Merino, it's probably that step up you have from Superwash Merino to BFL. I think BFL to Shetland is about the same step up, so it's a bit rougher, but it feels softer when it's been knitted with. And it might also be one of those yarns that gets softer once I've blocked it, once it's been worn a bit, but I think it's the perfect yarn for a big woolly jumper. Because often the kind of classically defined scratchier yarn is a bit warmer, but I wouldn't say it's scratchy, it's just a bit rougher. And I think that'll be fine. So that was relatively quick for me because I have very little to show. And yes. Should I really be filming? No, but we're so close. Only one project left, and this. I'm excited to share you. To share you? To share with you. Hooey. First, before I even hold it up, I'm going to spoil what I'm making. I'm making a blanket. And this was when I was talking about the Jessica Jones cowl, which is right by my feet. Hello. That's when I was kind of talking about, do I want a bit of scrap yarn at the end, or do I not? Because I might incorporate into this. I have been collecting together my 4-ply scraps for a while now. I had no idea what I was going to do with them. I just kept saving them for a scrappy project. Well, here's a scrappy project. Sophie from Botanical Yarn decided to do a make-along where you can knit or crochet a blanket. I've made 2 blankets before, both gifts for the same friend, though the first one was huge and sheds everywhere and I feel really bad giving that to him. The other one was a graduation Fibre present, and that one was cute. I should try and get pictures or share it somehow. Might be on my Instagram, I can't remember. And I'm also working on a blanket, which was the first thing that I kind of started knitting after I'd made the initial cowl, which I still will just share at some point in the video. It will come. but that yarn is acrylic and it's not my favourite, and I'm literally just making it and finishing it because I'm stubborn. I always said I wasn't stubborn, but I fully am. The sun is setting, it's getting dark, but I will be done soon. But yeah, so Sophie started running this make along, and at first I was like, oh, that's cool, but I've got too many projects, I'm not going to do it. And then I started thinking, but you have a lot of scraps from like the Litmus Cowl, because most of the time I knit with 4-ply, because it's the majority of what I buy. And just seeing all the scraps just made me feel a bit anxious. Just knowing they were there, I don't feel too anxious with my stash, even though it's quite big, as long as I separate my stash out into stash where I've got a project planned and stash where I'm like, oh, let's see what happens in the future. And that stash gives me anxiety if that gets too big, because then I start to kind of have doubts about, like, are you really spending your money wisely? Are you really putting that yarn to good use if you don't know where you're going to use it for? And just overthinking leads to anxious thoughts, anxious brain. So having scraps freaks me out because I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I say scrappy project, but then I don't have a particular scrappy project in mind, because I look at the yarn and I go, I don't think I want to make a jumper out of that, because I don't think I'd enjoy wearing all those colours together. So then I just keep being shoved in a bag in the back of my closet, ignored. And then I saw everyone else like either start new blankets or share the blankets they'd already been working on. And I was like, Nina, maybe just take some time, look for a pattern. And then I found the Happy Scrappy blanket, which is knit with 4-ply yarn held double. And she kind of suggests using one yarn to kind of, that's a bit where you've got more left, so it kind of pulls through as you just change one colour at a time. She says you can, you know, drastically change colour, but she said it's quite nice if it's a slower change, and that's what I've gone for. It still is quite drastic, but not as drastic as it could have been. So I'll finally hold it up. This is what I have so far. Oh, my computer's about to die, so we must talk quickly. So this is what I have. So you can see that there is a decent colour change happening, but I think so far I'm just now my third kind of main colour, I guess you'd call it, and all these like big changes you see here are from the contrast colour. At least that's what we'll call it. So most of this, I think up till here, was scraps from my Litmus Cowl and other Ducky Darlings yarn I had lying around. And then like other projects in here, it's like, here's a baby kimono I knitted, and that's still Litmus Cowl. This kind of blue grey in here is from a Cumulus blouse I made, the pattern's by Petite Knits. And then here I'm currently working with a mini skein I dyed with Hillary. First time I ever dyed wool. And I've just kind of accepted this isn't going to be a project that I really properly work on or count as a proper project. It's more, I want to knit something, I don't really want to have to think about it. It's my mindful, mindless project where I can just start using up some scraps, which has felt amazing so far. That anxiety has just whoof, evaporated into thin air. And let's not get into that, I don't have time to talk about it. Anyway, I think in the pattern, the woman who designed, I'll have it linked below, she said it took her 4 years to finish hers, but I'm hoping to work on the first bit quite quickly, get all my scraps out, and then have it that every time I finish a project, I start working on this again, put it aside, start a new project once I have 4-ply scraps, work on this again. And just watch it grow, and then be able to, you know, look back over it over the next few years and go, oh yeah, that's from this project, and that's from this project, and then there might be a time where I can't remember, and that's okay. Time moves ever on. But that's it. I know this was quite... I still rambled on a lot, didn't I? But it was quite quick for me. But I really am just tired and just wanted to share that. I don't think there's anything else I really want to share right now. Because I've got plans for future videos which will hopefully come up soon. I might try and get a decent amount of filming done this weekend because I'm just, throughout the week my calendar's filled up very quickly. That's what happens when, you know, uni starts to come back. I really do hope I get that job because the experience would be absolutely incredible. Does mean I won't have as much time for knitting. That is something I've had to kind of come to terms with, of knowing that taking on more, something's got to give. And I don't want to do my health and well-being. So it probably has to be my knitting, sadly. Though my supervisor also said when I talked to him about it, he was like, just accept that you will have tutorials and things that won't be perfect. And I was like, are you implying I'm a perfectionist? I tell myself I'm not, but quite often I find that my behaviour tends to show something else. But that is everything. That's all I'm going to talk. I'm going to stop talking now. You've seen some bits. I'm proud of myself for getting some bits done. The test knit, the jumper for my friend, which I can hopefully send off this weekend once I've blocked it. Treated myself to some new cast-ons, though both of them I don't really count because the blanket is using up scraps and it's just something that's going to be here long term. And the other one's once again a present for someone else, so I haven't cast on anything new for myself. But I'll hopefully start the colourwork jumper later this week when I maybe have a bit of time. Otherwise it will have to be the weekend. And also picked up some abandoned projects, which has felt incredible because I had like, what, 3, 4, 5, 6? Quite a few months off from them since I last really worked on them. So they almost feel new. And I forgot how much I actually enjoy knitting the Litmus Cowl because Georgie's working on one. And that kind of reminded me, maybe I should go back and just really work on mine. Maybe I can rekindle that love. Rekindle it has been. Rekindled it has been. But that's it. Thank you for watching. I've got other videos you can enjoy if you haven't watched them yet. Please do, you know, hit the like button. That'd be great. Leave a comment if you feel like communicating with me. And if I haven't said already, please subscribe. I've got many more videos planned. So if you enjoy this rambly brain and mouth and face, please do subscribe. And thank you! And I'll see you next time. Bye!